The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Starfleet has charted thousands of star systems, encountered hundreds of species, and witnessed phenomena that challenge comprehension. But what happens when something tears through the fabric of reality itself, bringing with it not just a ship, but an entire civilization built inside a weapon? What happens when survivors of one humanity's apocalypse arrive in another humanity's age of enlightenment? Captain Jean-Luc Picard stood on the bridge of the USS Enterprise D. His eyes fixed on the view screen displaying an impossibility. The spatial anomaly had appeared without warning 3 hours ago, a rupture in subspace, radiating energy signatures that defied every known classification. Not a wormhole. Not a temporal distortion. Something else entirely. Captain, Data reported from Ops, his golden eyes reflecting the sensor data scrolling across his console. The anomaly is emitting what appears to be a hybrid of subspace and an unknown dimensional frequency. The energy pattern suggests a catastrophic interaction between two fundamentally incompatible propulsion systems. On screen, Picard ordered. The view screen shifted, and the bridge crew fell silent. Emerging from the tearing wound in space was a vessel unlike anything in Starfleet's databases. It was massive, over 1 kilometer long, with a design that seemed to blend aircraft carrier, city, and fortress into a single impossible structure. Hull plating bore scorch marks and battle damage. Running lights flickered as the ship tumbled slowly through space, trailing atmosphere and debris. "My God!" Riker breathed from the first officer's chair. Are those buildings inside it? Indeed. Visible through transparent sections of the hull were structures, towers, residential blocks, what appeared to be streets with vehicles. It wasn't just a starship. It was a city. Sensors detect approximately 70,000 life signs aboard, Worf announced, his Klingon features darkening with concern. Mostly human, but the biosignatures are slightly variant from Federation baseline. Captain, their weapons systems are active. I'm reading energy signatures comparable to photon torpedoes. But the power generation method is completely unfamiliar. Picard stood, tugging his uniform straight, a habitual gesture when facing the unknown. "Hail them, Lieutenant." Worf's fingers moved across tactical. No response. Their communications systems appear damaged. However, I am detecting multiple smaller craft launching from internal bays. Configuration unknown. They're taking defensive positions around the larger vessel. On screen, sleek fighters emerged from the massive ship's launch bays, but these weren't ordinary spacecraft. As the Enterprise crew watched, the fighters transformed, their fuselages splitting and reconfiguring into humanoid shapes with visible cockpits in the chest sections. The mecha took up guard positions, their weapons trained on the Enterprise. Fascinating. Data observed. The smaller craft appear to be variable configuration combat units. The transformation occurs through a combination of mechanical articulation and what may be limited molecular restructuring. Captain, I believe we are witnessing transformable mecha technology, a theoretical concept in Federation aerospace engineering but never successfully implemented on this scale. Counselor Troy placed a hand to her temple, her empathic senses overwhelmed. Captain, I'm sensing fear, desperation, and beneath it all, a determination born from survival. These people have been fighting for their lives. They don't know where they are, and they see us as a potential threat. Defensive posture only, Picard commanded. Mr. Worf, lower shields. I want to show them we mean no harm. Mr. Data, can you establish any form of communication? Attempting to match their transmission frequencies now, sir. Their technology operates on principles similar to our own, but there are significant deviations in data. Paused. Captain, I am receiving a transmission. Audio only. Patching through. Static filled the bridge. Followed by a voice, human, male, carrying the weight of command and exhaustion in equal measure. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Henry Gloval of the SDF-1 Macross. We are not hostile, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Identify yourselves immediately. Picard stepped forward, his voice calm and measured. Captain Gloval, I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets Starship Enterprise. You have entered Federation space through what appears to be a dimensional anomaly. We are not your enemy, we are explorers and diplomats. Please, power down your weapons so we may render assistance. Your ship appears heavily damaged, and we detect significant casualties aboard. A long pause. In the background of the transmission, they could hear klaxons, shouted orders, the controlled chaos of a warship in crisis mode. Finally, Gloval's voice returned, measured but cautious. Captain Picard, did you say Federation? As in Earth? Sol system? Affirmative. Earth is the founding member of our Federation, along with Vulcan, Andoria, Teller, and over 150 other member worlds. Captain, where are you from? Another pause. Longer this time. When Global spoke again, there was a tremor beneath the military discipline. We're from Earth, Captain Picard. From the Sol system, but I suspect not from the same Earth as yours. Our sun, our star charts. Nothing matches. God help us, I think we've crossed into another reality entirely. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Picard felt the familiar weight of first contact settle on his shoulders, but this was unlike any first contact in Starfleet history. These weren't aliens from another world. They were humans from another universe, and if the damage to their vessel and the fear in their captain's voice were any indication, they were refugees from a war the Federation could barely imagine. Captain Global, Picard said carefully, I propose we meet face to face. I will transport aboard your vessel with my senior officers to discuss your situation and the assistance we can provide. Will you accept? Transport? Confusion colored Global's voice. You mean teleportation? That's operational technology in your universe? Riker leaned toward Picard, keeping his voice low. Captain, we know nothing about conditions aboard that ship, it could be a trap. Picard nodded slightly but kept his eyes on the view screen, where the massive fortress ship floated, wounded but defiant, its mecha fighters still holding their defensive positions. Captain Global, our transporter technology can beam individuals from one location to another instantaneously. It's perfectly safe, and it will allow us to meet without risking further damage to either of our vessels. What do you say? The silence stretched. Finally, stand by, Captain Picard. I'm conferring with my command staff. Macross out. The transmission cut. Picard turned to his crew. Impressions? They're scared, Troy said immediately. But Captain Global is trying to maintain order and discipline. Whatever they've been through, it's forged them into survivors. They won't surrender easily, but they might accept help if we approach them correctly. Their technology is impressive, Data added. The transformable mecha alone represent a significant advancement in variable configuration engineering. However, their power generation system appears to be depleting rapidly. If they cannot adapt to our universe's physical laws, they may face critical systems failure within 72 hours. Worf's expression was grim. Captain, I recommend caution. They are a military vessel carrying enough firepower to threaten a small fleet. Until we understand their intentions. Understood. Lieutenant, Picard interrupted gently. But they're also carrying 70,000 civilians, families, children. If we turn our backs on them now, we're no better than those who would exploit their vulnerability. The comm system chirped. Global's voice returned. Captain Picard, we'll accept your offer. But understand this. My ship has just fought its way through hell. And my people have sacrificed everything to survive. We're transmitting coordinates for a landing bay in the civilian section. Come unarmed. And bring medical supplies if you have them. We've got thousands of wounded and limited resources. Global out. Picard turned to his crew, resolve settling over his features. Number 1, you have the bridge. Mr. Worf, Mr. Data, Dr. Crusher, Counselor Troy, you're with me. Let's go meet Earth's refugees from another reality. And let's hope we can help them find their way home. As they moved toward the turbolift. None of them knew that in the shadows near the Romulan neutral zone, sensors were watching. The Tal Shiar had detected the anomaly too, and they were very interested in what the Federation had found. A city-sized warship with unknown technology, crewed by desperate humans from another dimension. The intelligence value was incalculable. And the Romulan Star Empire never let opportunities pass unexploited. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. The transporter room materialized around them, standard Enterprise precision, molecules reassembling in perfect order. But the moment Picard's boots touched the deck plating of the SDF-1, he knew this was no ordinary starship. The landing bay stretched before them like a commercial spaceport from Earth's early space age, but one that had seen combat. Scorch marks blackened bulkheads where fires had been extinguished. Emergency force fields shimmered over hull breaches, holding back the void. And everywhere were people. Civilians clustered in family groups, their belongings packed into whatever containers they could find. Children clung to parents, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. Medical personnel moved through the crowd with stretchers, treating wounded on makeshift cots. The air carried the acrid smell of burnt circuitry, recycled atmosphere, and human desperation. My God! Dr. Crusher breathed. Her medical tricorder already scanning. Jean-Luc. I'm reading malnutrition, radiation exposure, combat trauma. These people have been living in a war zone. An honor guard approached soldiers in armor that looked like a fusion of military tactical gear and aerospace pilot suits. Their weapons weren't phasers but projectile-based rifles with oversized barrels. The lead soldier, a woman with lieutenant's insignia, saluted crisply. "Captain Picard? I'm Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes. Captain Gloval is waiting in the command conference room. If you'll follow me?" Her eyes swept over the away team's uniforms, lingering on Data's golden skin and Worf's Klingon features. "We've never seen aliens before. Your crew is human, Klingon, and android. Commander Data is a sentient artificial life form," Picard explained as they walked. "And Lieutenant Worf is indeed Klingon. A proud warrior species and valued member of the Federation. I take it your Earth never encountered extraterrestrial intelligence?" Lisa's laugh was bitter. "Oh, we encountered it, Captain. That's why we're here. The Zentraedi giants bred for war by an ancient race called the Robotech Masters. They found Earth. And they nearly destroyed us. The SDF-1 was our last hope. We've been fighting them for nearly 2 years, losing ground every day. And then our full drive malfunctioned during a transformation sequence, and..." She gestured helplessly at the damaged bay around them. "Here we are, another universe. Another chance. Maybe. Or just another way to die far from home." They entered an elevator that rose through the ship's internal structure. Through transparent sections, Picard glimpsed the impossible actual city blocks inside the vessel. Residential towers. Shopping districts. Parks with artificial sky projections. The SDF-1 wasn't carrying refugees. It was a refugee city, wrapped in weapons and armor. "Your ship transforms," Data observed, his curiosity evident. "The structural reconfiguration required would necessitate extraordinary engineering. May I inquire as to the purpose?" Lisa's expression softened slightly, pride breaking through exhaustion. "The SDF-1 has 3 modes. Cruiser configuration for standard operations and fold space travel. Guardian mode for enhanced combat maneuverability. And Fortress mode full humanoid transformation. When we go Fortress, we become a giant warrior. It's our ultimate weapon against the Zentraedi flagship-class vessels. But the transformation puts incredible stress on the superstructure. That's why we have a city inside we needed radiation shielding. Life support redundancy. Everything civilians required to survive while the ship fought." The elevator doors opened onto a command deck that looked like a hybrid of military bridge and crisis coordination center. Tactical displays showed star charts that didn't match Federation space. Damage control teams coordinated repairs across dozens of screens. And at the center, standing before a holographic projection of the SDF-1's current status, stood Captain Henry Gloval. He was older than Picard, his face weathered by command decisions no captain should have to make. His uniform was crisp despite the chaos around him, gray hair perfectly combed, but his eyes carried the weight of 70,000 souls balanced on every choice. "Captain Picard." Gloval extended a hand, and Picard shook it, a gesture of shared humanity across dimensional barriers. "Forgive our hospitality. We're not exactly equipped for diplomatic receptions at the moment. Captain Gloval, may I introduce my senior staff, Commander Data, my second officer and operations specialist, Lieutenant Worf, Chief of Security, Dr. Beverly Crusher, Chief Medical Officer, and Counselor Deanna Troy, Ship's Counselor and Diplomatic Officer." Gloval nodded to each in turn, though his gaze lingered on Worf with a soldier's assessment. "A Klingon. We don't have anything like your species in our universe, at least, not that we've encountered. But then, we've been somewhat preoccupied with survival. An honorable pursuit." Worf rumbled. "Your warriors fight well. The defensive positions your mecha took were tactically sound." A slight smile crossed Gloval's face. "I'll pass your compliments to Commander Fokker and his Veritech squadrons. They've kept us alive through impossible odds." The smile faded. "But we're running out of time, Captain Picard. Our reflex furnace, the reactor that powers this ship, runs on protoculture. That's a substance created from the flower of life, native to the planet Optera in our universe. We brought reserves, but we're down to 30% capacity. If we can't find a compatible energy source in your reality, we'll lose main power in 3 days. And without power..." He didn't need to finish. "Without power, 70,000 people died in the cold vacuum of space." "Dr. Crusher," Picard said immediately, "begin coordinating with their medical staff. Treat the wounded. Assess their needs. Mr. Data, work with their engineering teams. I want a full analysis of their power systems and compatibility with our technology." "Captain," Counselor Troy stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "May I speak with you privately?" Gloval gestured to an adjacent office. Inside, away from the command center's chaos, Troy's expression was troubled. Jean-Luc. These people aren't just traumatized, they're militarized to the core. Children are being trained in combat protocols. Civilians accept martial law without question. This isn't a Starfleet vessel where scientific curiosity drives exploration. This is a generation ship built from desperation, where every person knows they might die at any moment. Picard absorbed this, understanding the implications. You're saying they won't easily accept Federation principles. I'm saying they've survived by making hard choices we've never had to face. The Prime Directive, diplomatic negotiations, peaceful first contact, these are luxuries of a civilization that hasn't fought for its existence. Captain Gloval is a good man, but he's a warrior first. If he perceives the Federation as weak or unwilling to help, he'll find other allies. Or make his own path. Back in the command center, Data was already interfacing with the SDF-1's computer systems, his positronic brain processing their technology at superhuman speed. Gloval watched with fascination as Data's fingers moved across the consoles. Fascinating, Data murmured. Your robotechnology appears to be based on reverse-engineered alien systems. The underlying principles are remarkably elegant, though fundamentally incompatible with our matter-antimatter reactions. However, I believe dilithium crystals could be modified to regulate your reflex furnace if we can synthesize a protoculture analog using. Alarms shrieked across the command deck. Contact! A tactical officer shouted. Unknown vessel decloaking off starboard bow. Configuration matches nothing in our databases. On the view screen, a predatory shape materialized from nothing, angular, painted in aggressive greens. Unmistakably hostile. The Romulan warbird's weapons powered up, and targeting sensors locked onto both the Enterprise and the SDF-1. Gloval's voice cut through the alarm. Battle stations. All hands to combat positions. Veritech squadrons, launch and engage. Belay that. Picard commanded, his voice carrying absolute authority. Captain Gloval, those are Romulans. They're a hostile power, but firing first would violate Federation law and potentially start a war. Let me handle this. Gloval's jaw tightened. Captain. In my universe, when someone points a gun at you, you shoot first and ask questions later. That's how we've survived. And in my universe, Picard replied quietly, we've survived by choosing diplomacy over destruction whenever possible. Trust me, Captain, please. The two captains locked eyes, two philosophies of survival, two versions of humanity's response to danger. Around them, crews waited for orders that would define what happened next. On the view screen, the Romulan warbird's weapons charged to full power. The Romulan commander's face appeared on the view screen, sharp features, calculating eyes, the bearing of someone who viewed every interaction as a strategic opportunity. Commander Tomalak. Picard recognized him immediately. They'd crossed paths before, always dancing along the edge of diplomatic incident and open conflict. Captain Picard. Tomalak's voice carried false warmth. How fascinating to find you here, so close to the neutral zone. And with such interesting company. His gaze shifted to the SDF-1, and Picard saw naked hunger in those eyes. A vessel I've never encountered in any Imperial database. Technology that appears to predate even the ancient races we've studied. Tell me, is the Federation now in the business of harboring dimensional refugees without informing the Romulan Star Empire? Picard kept his voice level, diplomatic. Commander Tomalak, this vessel arrived through an uncontrolled spatial anomaly. They pose no threat to the Empire or the Federation. They are simply trying to survive. Survive? Tomalak's laugh was cold. Captain, my sensors indicate that survivor ship carries weapons capable of planetary bombardment, houses what appears to be an entire military force, and operates on technology completely unknown to us. That's not survival, that's opportunity. I propose we take them into Romulan custody for questioning. Purely humanitarian. You understand. On the SDF-1's bridge, Gloval's hand hovered over the weapons authorization panel. Lisa Hayes whispered urgently, Sir, we could take them. One Romulan ship versus our main cannon, and start a war in a universe we don't understand? Gloval shot back, though his jaw remained clenched. Stand down, Commander. But keep targeting solutions ready. Picard spoke carefully, aware that both crews were balanced on a knife's edge. Commander Tomalak, these people are under Federation protection. Any hostile action against them would be considered an act of war. Protection? Tomalak leaned forward. Captain, they're not Federation citizens. They're not even from this reality. What laws protect beings who technically don't exist in our universe? An interesting philosophical question, don't you think? His eyes glittered. I'll make this simple. The Romulan Star Empire claims salvage rights to this vessel and its technology. You have 1 hour to evacuate any personnel you've placed aboard, Then it becomes Imperial property. Worf's growl rumbled across the comm channel. Captain, the Enterprise is moving into defensive position. I recommend we. Captain Picard. A new voice, young, male, crackling with barely restrained energy, cut across the channel. On the SDF-1's view screen, a pilot in a flight suit appeared. This is Commander Roy Fokker, Skull Squadron leader. My Veritechs are ready to launch. Give the word and we'll show these pointy-eared bastards what robotechnology can do. Commander Fokker, stand down. Global ordered, but Picard could see the conflict in the captain's eyes. Every instinct screamed to fight, to defend, to survive. Roy. Belay that. Another voice, female. Younger than Fokker. We don't know what we're dealing with here. Tomalak's expression shifted to predatory interest. Transformable combat units? Oh, this gets better by the moment. Captain Picard, your hour is now 59 minutes. I suggest you use it wisely. The transmission cut. The warbird held position, weapons charged. Waiting, Picard turned to Global, and in that moment, the two captains understood each other perfectly. One had spent years fighting for survival against impossible odds. The other had spent decades navigating the treacherous waters of interstellar diplomacy. Both were trying to save lives. Captain Global, Picard said quietly, I need you to trust that I can resolve this without bloodshed. But I also need you to understand something about the Romulans. They respect strength, but they respect cunning more. If we fight them here, now, we win the battle but lose the war. The entire Romulan fleet would descend on this position within hours. And if we don't fight? Global's voice was hard. They take my ship, assimilate my people into their empire, strip the SDF-1 for technology? Captain, I've watched the Zentraedi do exactly that to human colonies. I won't let it happen again. Data's voice came through clearly. Captain Picard. I may have a solution. If I may. Proceed, Mr. Data. The Romulan claim of salvage rights is predicated on the SDF-1 being derelict or abandoned. However, Captain Global maintains full command authority. The vessel is operational despite damage, and its crew numbers in the tens of thousands. By any legal interpretation, Federation, Romulan, or interstellar law, this is an active military vessel, not salvage. Tomalak's voice returned, dripping sarcasm. Very clever, android. But the ship isn't registered with any known government. It has no territorial claims, no diplomatic status. In essence, it's a rogue military asset in neutral space. Counselor Troy stepped forward, her diplomatic training engaging. Commander Tomalak, surely the Romulan Empire doesn't make war on refugees. Your own history speaks of the great journey from Vulcan, of survival against impossible odds. These people are fleeing annihilation. Would you deny them the same chance your ancestors claimed? For a moment, just a moment, something flickered across Tomalak's features. Then the mask returned. Touching. Counselor. But sentiment doesn't change strategic reality. On the SDF-1, a young woman in civilian clothes pushed through the command center crowd. Her press credentials visible. Captain Global, the civilian population wants to know what's happening. Are we going to war again? People are panicking down in Macross City. Families are. Not now, Miss Minmay, Lisa Hayes intercepted her. This is a military situation. But Picard saw the human element, the reporter, the families, the children. This wasn't just a military vessel. It was a society, compressed into metal and desperation. Commander Tomalak, Picard said. A plan forming. I propose an alternative. Grant me 12 hours to establish the SDF-1's diplomatic status with the Federation Council. If they reject protection, then we can discuss territorial claims. But if the Federation accepts them as protectorate or allied refugees, then your salvage claim becomes moot. Silence. Tomalak was calculating angles, weighing opportunities against risks. 6 hours, he finally said. And Captain Picard? I'll be watching. If that ship attempts to fold, jump, or flee in any way, I'll interpret it as abandoning negotiation and act accordingly. Tomalak out. The warbird held position, but its weapons powered down to standby. A temporary reprieve. Global let out a breath he'd been holding. 6 hours to convince your government to protect 70,000 refugees from another dimension and their city-sized warship. Captain Picard. I admire your optimism. But in my experience, politicians move slower than combat maneuvers. Then we'll have to move faster. Picard tapped his comm badge. Enterprise, I need an emergency subspace channel to Starfleet Command and the Federation Council. Priority 1, diplomatic crisis. Captain. Worf's voice came through. Tense. I'm detecting 3 more vessels approaching. Configuration. Klingon. Bird of prey class. Of course. the Klingons would have detected the anomaly too. And where Romulans saw strategic advantage, Klingons saw something else entirely. On the SDF-1's auxiliary screen, 3 Klingon ships decloaked in perfect attack formation. But they weren't targeting the Federation or Romulan vessels. They were heading straight for the Veritech fighters that were still deployed around the SDF-1. Commander Fokker's voice crackled across all channels. Unknown vessels approaching attack vector. Skull Squadron. Defensive Delta formation. If they want to fight, let's show them what we've got. Belay that order. Global and Picard shouted simultaneously. But the lead Klingon vessel was already accelerating, and on its bridge, a warrior captain was grinning. The Klingons hadn't come to salvage or negotiate. They'd come to test themselves against warriors from another reality. The lead bird of prey fired not torpedoes, but a disruptor burst across Skull Squadron's bow. Not an attack, a challenge. This is Captain Clag of the Imperial Klingon vessel Gorkon. A deep voice boomed across all frequencies. We have watched your defensive patterns, your squadron discipline, your transformation technology. You fly with honor and courage. I propose a test of skill, single combat, ship to ship, warrior to warrior. If your pilots defeat mine, the Klingon Empire will speak for you against Romulan claims. If you lose, we will claim one of your transformed fighters as trophy and depart. Do you accept? Global looked at Picard. Tell me your universe isn't always this complicated. I'm afraid it gets worse. Picard admitted. But Captain Clag is offering something valuable: Klingon diplomatic support. If they speak for you, the Romulans will be forced to negotiate through proper channels. And if we lose, then you lose one fighter and gain nothing but Klingon respect. Roy Fokker's face appeared on screen, his famous grin firmly in place despite the tension. Captain, with all due respect, Skull Squadron doesn't lose. Give me the green light and I'll teach these aliens why Earth's the best damn planet for fighter pilots in any universe. Global closed his eyes briefly, then opened them with decision. Commander Fokker, you are authorized for single combat demonstration, but Roy, no casualties. Win with style, not body count. Understood, boss. Skull 1, transforming to Battloid mode. On the view screen, the Veritech began its transformation aerospace fighter, reconfiguring into a humanoid mecha, thrusters adjusting to maintain position, weapon systems remaining non-lethal but clearly capable. The Klingon bird of prey circled, its captain's laughter booming across the channel. Yes. Now this is worthy combat. Come, human warrior. Show me what you're made of. As the two vessels began their deadly dance, Picard and Global stood side by side, watching two philosophies of survival play out against the stars. And in the shadows beyond sensor range, more eyes were watching. The Tal Shiar wasn't done. And neither was an intelligence far more dangerous than either Romulans or Klingons could imagine. Somewhere in the darkness, a Borg cube had detected the unusual energy signatures. The collective was coming. The combat was unlike anything Picard had witnessed in decades of Starfleet service. Commander Fokker's Veritech moved through space with impossible grace, transforming mid-flight from Battloid to Guardian to fighter mode, each configuration optimized for different attack angles. The Klingon bird of prey matched him maneuver for maneuver, disruptor fire painting the void with emerald energy. But what struck Picard most wasn't the technical prowess, it was the artistry. Both pilots were pushing their crafts to the absolute limit, but neither was trying to kill. This was demonstration. Warrior testing warrior. Skill against skill. Incredible. Data murmured, his sensors tracking every microsecond of the engagement. Commander Fokker is compensating for inertial forces that should tear his craft apart during transformation sequences. The G-forces alone would incapacitate most humanoid pilots, yet his maneuvering suggests either enhanced physical conditioning or advanced inertial dampening technology we haven't detected. On the SDF-1's bridge, Lisa Hayes monitored tactical readouts with the calm of someone who'd watched Roy Fokker cheat death 1,000 times. But her knuckles were white on the console edge. Roy's showing off, she muttered. He always shows off. A younger pilot barely out of his teens, with blue hair and nervous energy stood nearby. Commander Hayes, should Vermilion Squadron launch for backup? If the Klingons decide to, stand down, Lieutenant Sterling. Roy knows what he's doing. Besides, if we launch more fighters, it looks like we don't trust him to win alone. That's an insult in any warrior culture. Right, Captain Global? Global nodded, his eyes never leaving the view screen. In 2 years of fighting the Zentraedi, I've learned that warriors, human or alien, respect individual skill above everything else. Roy's not just fighting for us. He's fighting for every pilot on this ship. If he wins, our people know they can stand against this universe's threats. If he loses, Global's jaw tightened. He won't lose. The Klingon bird of prey rolled its disruptors, tracing complex patterns that would have vaporized a less skilled opponent, but Fokker anticipated each burst, his Veritech transforming into Guardian mode, legs extended, arms locked in firing position and returning fire with precision bursts from his gun pod. The shots impacted the bird of prey's shields, not penetrating but demonstrating exact targeting under impossible conditions. Captain Clagg's laughter boomed across the channel. Yes. You fly with the heart of a Klingon, human. Your craft dances like a warrior's blade. But can you match this? The bird of prey inverted, executed a maneuver that defied conventional physics, using its impulse engines to spin on 3 axes simultaneously, and fired a spread pattern that should have been impossible to evade. Fokker's response was pure instinct. His Veritech transformed to fighter mode, accelerated through the narrow gap between disruptor beams, then transformed back to Battloid, rotated 180 degrees, and returned fire while flying backwards relative to his original vector. Silence fell across both bridges. Even the Klingons seemed stunned. That's impossible, Worf breathed. The spatial calculations alone. He didn't calculate, Counselor Troy said softly, sensing the pilot's mental state. He felt it. Pure instinct and training merged into reaction faster than conscious thought. My God. These people don't just fly their fighters. They become them. Captain Clagg's voice returned. But the mockery was gone. Now there was pure respect. Human warrior. You honor your ancestors and your comrades. I, Captain Clag of the House of Imarak, declare this contest complete. You have proven your worth. The Klingon Empire will speak for the SDF-1 in any diplomatic venue. May your enemies die screaming and your victories be legendary. Fokker's Veritech executed a perfect barrel roll, clearly celebratory, before transforming back to fighter mode and rejoining his squadron. His voice came through, cocky but warm. All in a day's work, Captain Clag. You fly pretty good yourself for a guy without transformable mecha. Maybe we can share some sakes sometime. Compare war stories. Bah! Klingons drink blood wine, not your human rice water. But yes, I would hear tales of your battles. Kapla. Commander Fokker. The Klingon ships held position. Their presence now shifted from threat to not quite ally, but something approaching it. The tension that had gripped both bridges eased fractionally. Picard allowed himself a slight smile. Captain Gloval. It appears you've just secured your first diplomatic relationship in this universe. But Gloval's expression remained troubled. At what cost? We've now demonstrated our combat capabilities to multiple hostile factions. In my experience, showing strength invites challenge. How long before? Captain Picard. Data's voice cut through, urgent in a way the android's usual calm never was. I am detecting a massive subspace disturbance approximately 15 light-years from our current position. Energy signature matches nothing in Federation databases, but the spatial configuration suggests something very large entering normal space. The Zentraedi. Gloval's face went pale. They found us. Even across dimensional barriers, they tracked us. Captain, the signature doesn't match any of your stored Zentraedi vessel configurations. Data corrected. This is something different. The energy pattern suggests a vessel or structure of unprecedented size, approximately 28 cubic kilometers in volume. Picard's blood ran cold. He knew only one species that built vessels that large. Borg, Worf confirmed, his sensors updating. A cube-class vessel. Captain. They're on intercept course. ETA 4 hours at current speed. The Romulan warbird's transmission crackled with barely concealed alarm. Picard, are you detecting this? The Borg? Here? This is your fault. That dimensional anomaly must have attracted them. Actually, Commander Tomalak, I believe they're attracted to the SDF-1's unique technology, Data said calmly. The collective seeks to assimilate distinctiveness. A transformable fortress ship from another dimension represents technological distinctiveness of the highest order. In the SDF-1's civilian section, panic was spreading. The reporter Minmay was broadcasting updates that reached every corner of Macross City. Families huddled in their apartments, survivors of 2 years of warfare now facing a new threat they didn't understand. Dr. Crusher's combadge chirped. Captain, I'm in their medical bay. The civilian population is showing signs of acute stress disorder. Many of these people have PTSD from the Zentraedi war. They're not ready for another conflict. Some are talking about suicide rather than face capture again. Counselor Troy's empathic senses were overwhelmed by waves of fear cascading through the SDF-1. Jean-Luc, they've reached their breaking point. These people can't take much more. Gloval straightened, his command voice cutting through the growing chaos on his bridge. All hands, this is the captain. We've faced extinction before. We've fought when victory was impossible. We've survived when survival was a miracle. I don't know what these Borg are. But I know one thing: we're still here. The SDF-1 is still flying. And we will defend every single person aboard this ship, just like we always have. Battle stations. Prepare for transformation to fortress mode. Captain Gloval, wait, Picard said urgently. The Borg aren't like anything you've fought before. They don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They assimilate. They convert living beings into extensions of their collective consciousness. Your weapons, your courage, your individual skill, none of it matters against them. They adapt to every attack, learn from every defense. The only way to defeat the Borg is what? Captain Picard? Gloval's voice was hard. To run? To hide? To hope someone else fights our battles? That's not who we are. That's not who humanity is, at least, not the humanity I know. Picard met his gaze. And in that moment saw the fundamental divide between their philosophies. The Federation had learned to choose its battles carefully, to seek peaceful alternatives, to preserve life above victory. The SDF-1's crew had learned that survival meant fighting, always fighting, because anything less meant extinction. Captain Gloval, I'm not suggesting surrender. I'm suggesting strategy. The Borg have weaknesses. But exploiting them requires coordination, shared technology, and tactics specifically designed for their unique nature. Let us help you. Let our ships fight together. Together? Commander Tomalak's voice dripped skepticism. Picard, you're proposing a Federation Romulan-Klingon alliance? The Empire doesn't ally with anyone. Especially not to protect dimensional refugees. Then leave, Worf growled. Klingons do not abandon worthy opponents to honorless machines. We will stand with the SDF-1. Captain Clagg's transmission confirmed it. The android speaks truth. These Borg have no honor. They are machines consuming life. The Gorkon and her sister ships will fight. Commander Fokker has proven his worth. We will not let the machines take warriors of his caliber. Silence from the Romulan warbird. Then, reluctantly, the Tal Shiar will want detailed scans of both the SDF-1's technology and the Borg's response to it. Consider my presence observational. If the battle turns against you, don't expect heroic sacrifice from the Empire. Understood, Picard said dryly. Your selflessness is noted. Lisa Hayes was coordinating with her tactical teams. Her voice rapid-fire efficient. Barrier system to full power. Main gun charging will need 8 minutes for a full power shot. Veritech squadrons, deploy in defensive sphere formation. Destroyed units. Prepare for boarding actions in case they breach the hull. Civilian sections. Full lockdown and evacuation to core shelters. Data was already interfacing with the Enterprise's tactical systems. Captain, I recommend we coordinate our shield frequencies with the SDF-1's barrier system. If we can create a harmonic resonance pattern. It may delay Borg adaptation by forcing them to analyze 2 distinct defensive technologies simultaneously. Make it so. Mr. Worf. Coordinate with Commander Hayes. I want firing solutions that complement their main weapon, not duplicated. Gloval watched the coordinated response, seeing professional military efficiency from multiple species working together. Something shifted in his expression, not quite trust, but recognition. Captain Picard, I'm beginning to understand what your Federation represents. Different species, different philosophies, but unified purpose when it matters. That's the ideal we strive for. Picard acknowledged. Though we don't always achieve it. Young Lieutenant Sterling, the blue-haired pilot, spoke up nervously. Sirs, what if we can't stop them? What if these Borg are too strong? Before Gloval could respond, an unexpected voice filled the bridge. It was Minmay, the reporter, broadcasting from somewhere in the civilian section. But she wasn't reporting news. She was singing, her voice clear, pure, defiant, carried through every speaker on the ship. A song about hope, about survival, about humanity's refusal to surrender even when darkness seemed absolute. Throughout Macross City, civilians stopped panicking. Families held each other and listened. Soldiers at their stations felt courage renewed. She does this, Lisa Hayes said softly. Whenever things get darkest. Minmay sings. And somehow it reminds us what we're fighting for. Counselor Troy felt tears on her cheeks. The song. It's not just auditory. It's carrying their collective hope. Their shared trauma and triumph. She's giving voice to their will to survive. 4 hours until the Borg arrived. 4 hours to prepare defenses against an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with, negotiated with, or frightened. 4 hours to merge technologies from 2 universes and 3 hostile factions into something that might give them a chance. Picard looked at Gloval. 2 captains. 2 humanities. Facing the same darkness. Captain. Global said quietly, "If we survive this, I think we need to have a serious conversation about what it means to be human in your universe versus mine. But first, let's make sure there's an after to have that conversation in." Agreed. Let's show the Borg what happens when they threaten not just one humanity, but two. On the view screen, stars blazed in peaceful silence. For now. But the darkness between those stars was moving. And it was hungry. The 4 hours passed like 4 minutes. In the Enterprise's engineering section, Geordi LaForge worked alongside SDF-1 engineers who treated matter, antimatter reactions like foreign language and dilithium crystals like alien artifacts. Their own technology protoculture-based reflex systems operated on principles that made Federation science look primitive in some ways and impossibly advanced in others. "Okay, explain this to me one more time," Geordi said, his visor scanning the reflex furnace core that powered the massive fortress. "You're telling me this reactor doesn't use fusion, fission, or matter, antimatter annihilation? It's running on what flower power?" The SDF-1's chief engineer, a gruff man named Dr. Lang, actually smiled despite the tension. "The flower of life produces protoculture through a biological dimensional process we still don't fully understand. The Robotech masters, the aliens who originally built this ship, used it as a universal fuel source. When we captured the SDF-1 after it crashed on Earth, we reverse-engineered what we could, but we're essentially children playing with tools we barely comprehend." "That's terrifyingly honest," Geordi admitted. "But if protoculture doesn't exist in our universe, and your reserves are depleting, we need alternatives fast." He gestured to a console displaying comparative energy outputs. "For Hawking, our dilithium crystals regulate matter, antimatter reactions by controlling the annihilation rate. If we could modify your reflex furnace to accept dilithium as a regulatory matrix instead of protoculture, the dimensional frequencies would be incompatible," Dr. Lang interrupted. "We've already run the calculations. Your technology operates in standard 4-dimensional spacetime. Ours taps into fold space, a higher dimensional manifold where distance becomes negotiable. Mixing the two could cause a catastrophic resonance cascade. Or," Data's voice came from behind them, "it could create a hybrid system that draws power from both dimensional frameworks simultaneously. Risky, but potentially more efficient than either system alone." Dr. Lang stared at the android. "You're insane. That kind of dimensional engineering could tear a hole in space-time. We are already standing beside a dimensional rift through which your ship arrived," Data pointed out logically. "The risk is inherent. The question is whether we harness it or let it destroy us." On the SDF-1's bridge, tactical preparations were reaching critical mass. Worf coordinated with Lisa Hayes and Commander Fokker, integrating 3 different military doctrines into something resembling unified strategy. "Your Veritech squadrons will provide rapid response interception," Worf explained, his Klingon tactical mind adapting to the transformable fighter's unique capabilities. "When the Borg launch boarding craft, enable your Battloid mode gives you advantages in close-quarters combat that our shuttlecraft lack. But you must avoid extended engagement. The Borg adapt. Every second you fight, they learn." Roy Fokker leaned back in his chair, his casual demeanor belying the deadly seriousness in his eyes. "So hit fast, hit hard, and get out before they figure out our moves. Sounds like every dogfight I've ever been in." "What about the big guns? That Borg cube is what? 28 cubic kilometers? Our main cannon in fortress mode can punch through Zentraedi flagships. How will it handle against their shields?" "Unknown," Worf admitted. "But Captain Picard believes the element of surprise is our greatest advantage. The Borg have never encountered your technology. The first shot will be devastating. After that..." He left the implications hanging. Lisa Hayes pulled up holographic displays of the SDF-1's transformation sequence. "Fortress mode puts enormous stress on the superstructure. We've got civilian sections throughout the ship, neighborhoods, schools, hospitals. When we transform, those areas experience gravitational fluctuations, structural shifts, and temporary power disruptions. We're looking at potential casualties just from going fortress. Then we don't transform until the last possible moment," Global decided. "Keep them guessing. Make them think we're just an oversized cruiser until we're ready to show them what we really are." The Klingon vessels had taken up flanking positions, their captains eager for battle, but disciplined enough to follow tactical coordination. Captain Clagg's transmission carried Warrior's anticipation. "The Gorkon and her sister ships are ready. We've modified our disruptors to rotating frequency modulation. It will delay Borg adaptation, though not prevent it." "How long until they arrive?" 90 minutes, Data reported from his position aboard the Enterprise. "Captain, I must inform you that my analysis of Borg tactical patterns suggests they will not simply attack. They will attempt to assimilate the SDF-1 intact. Its unique technology represents too valuable a prize to simply destroy. Picard absorbed this, the implications settling like lead in his stomach. Which means they'll focus on disabling rather than obliterating. Boarding parties. Assimilation of key personnel. Taking control of systems from within. Exactly. And with 70,000 civilians aboard the SDF-1, there are ample targets for conversion to drones. In Macross City, the civilian section of the SDF-1, the lockdown had transformed the bustling metropolis into a ghost town. Streets were empty. Shops shuttered. Families huddled in reinforced shelters designed to survive combat maneuvers and weapons fire. But no one had designed them to survive the Borg. Minmay moved through the shelter nearest to the civilian command center, her camera operator following, still broadcasting. She'd stopped singing. Now she was simply talking to people, letting them share their fears and hopes. "I'm scared," a little girl told her, clutching a stuffed animal. "Mommy says machines are coming. Bad machines that turn people into more machines. I don't want to be a machine." Minmay knelt, meeting the child's eyes. "You know what? I'm scared too. But I'll tell you a secret. Every time I've been really, truly scared, the people on this ship have protected me. Captain Gloval, Commander Fokker, all the brave pilots and crew, they've never let us down. And now we have new friends. Captain Picard and his crew, the Klingons, even people who were our enemies an hour ago. Everyone's working together to keep us safe. Even the mean aliens? Even them. Because sometimes, when something really bad shows up, everyone else remembers that we're not so different after all." Dr. Crusher watched the broadcast from the medical bay she'd set up in collaboration with SDF-1's medical staff. "Out of the mouths of babes," she murmured. That little girl just summarized everything the Federation supposedly stands for. Her Starfleet medics worked alongside Robotech medical personnel, prepping for casualties that would inevitably come. Triage protocols. Surgical bays. Stasis fields for critical injuries. And most sobering, containment protocols for Borg assimilation victims. Beverly, one of her staff, asked quietly, "If someone gets assimilated, partially assimilated, is there any way to reverse it?" But Cality. She thought of Picard. Of his time as Locutus. Of the nightmares he still suffered. Sometimes. If we catch it early enough. If the nanoprobes haven't fully integrated. But it's never easy. And the person who comes back is never quite the same. The Romulan warbird maintained its distant position, sensors recording everything. Commander Tomalak's tactical officer reported. "Commander, the Federation is integrating defensive systems with both the Klingons and the dimensional refugee vessel. If this strategy proves effective against the Borg, then the Tal Shiar will want detailed analysis," Tomalak finished. "But let's not celebrate prematurely. The Borg have destroyed entire civilizations. These refugees' fancy transforming ship may be impressive against conventional threats, but the collective is anything but conventional." His science officer looked up from her console, face pale. "Commander, I'm detecting something unusual. The Borg cube isn't following a direct intercept course. It's spiraling inward. Each revolution brings it closer, but from a different vector. They're analyzing our defensive positions from multiple angles before committing to attack." Tomalak's eyes narrowed. "They're learning before they even engage. Clever. Picard, are you monitoring this?" "Affirmative," Picard replied. "They're performing reconnaissance. Analyzing our formation, our shield configurations, the SDF-1's energy signature. They want to understand what they're facing before they risk valuable resources." "Then we're not surprising them at all," Gloval said grimly. "They know we're ready. They're just deciding how to take us apart most efficiently." Counselor Troy felt the shift in collective emotion, fear crystallizing into resolve. "Captain, the crew isn't breaking. Both crews. They're facing impossible odds. And they're standing firm. Because they've faced impossible odds before," Picard observed. "The SDF-1's crew has survived 2 years of genocide warfare. My crew has faced the Borg and lived to tell the tale. Perhaps together, we have something the collective hasn't encountered, experienced survivors who refuse to become victims again." 60 minutes until contact. In engineering, Geordi and Dr. Lang were attempting what every regulation said was impossible, connecting incompatible power systems from different dimensional frameworks. Sparks flew. Energy readings spiked dangerously. And then, impossibly, the systems synchronized. "We've got hybrid power flow," Geordi shouted. "The dilithium matrix is regulating protoculture energy output. We've just increased the SDF-1's available power by 30%. And created a potential bomb that could vaporize everything within 10 kilometers, Dr. Lang added. "But at this point, who's counting risks?" "Bridge, this is engineering," Geordi reported. "You've got more power than you know what to do with. Use it wisely." Global allowed himself a tight smile. Commander Hayes, route additional power to the barrier system and main cannon. If we're going fortress mode, I want to hit them hard enough that they remember it. If they have memory, Lisa muttered. Do machines remember pain? The Borg remember everything, Worf said darkly. That's what makes them so dangerous. Every battle, every tactic, every weapon, they adapt and store the information for the entire collective. When we fight them, we're fighting the accumulated knowledge of every species they've ever assimilated. 30 minutes until contact. The Borg cube emerged from its spiral approach, finally committing to a vector. It came straight at them, no evasion, no tactical subtlety. Just relentless forward momentum, confident in its superiority. All ships, battle stations, Picard ordered. This is not a drill. The Borg are here. On the SDF-1, klaxons blared the transformation warning. Throughout Macross City, civilians braced themselves in shelters as the massive ship began its metamorphosis. Metal groaned, sections rotated on massive pivot points. The kilometer-long cruiser reconfigured itself, legs extending, arms deploying, the city structure becoming the torso of a mechanical giant. The transformation completed in 90 seconds. Where a ship had floated, now stood a humanoid fortress, its main cannon aimed directly at the approaching cube. Captain Clagg's laughter boomed across all channels. Now that is a weapon worthy of song. Picard. Your refugees know how to make an entrance. The Borg cube continued its approach, unfazed. And then its voice, that terrible collective voice, stripped of individuality and mercy, echoed across every frequency. We are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Your technological and biological distinctiveness will be added to our own. Resistance is futile. In the civilian shelters, children cried. But in the cockpits of Veritech fighters, on the bridges of Starfleet and Klingon vessels, and standing on the command deck of a fortress from another reality, warriors prepared to prove that resistance was anything but futile. All weapons. Fire at will. Global ordered. Show them what humanity can do when pushed to the edge. The battle for survival for both humanities had begun. The SDF-1's main cannon fired first a beam of reflex energy that tore through space with the destructive power of a collapsing star. The Borg cube's shields flared, absorbing the initial impact, but the sheer concentrated force punched through. A massive section of the cube's hull vaporized, exposing internal structures and quarters to vacuum. For 3 seconds, the collective was silent. Then, adaptation complete, defensive frequency modulated. Additional attacks of this nature will be ineffective. They adapted to a weapon they'd never seen before in 3 seconds. Dr. Lang breathed. That's impossible. Not impossible, data corrected. Improbable, but consistent with Borg capabilities. However, they had to divert significant processing power to analyze and counter the reflex energy. Captain, I recommend we exploit the computational lag. If we force them to adapt to multiple unprecedented technologies simultaneously, their response time increases. Picard finished. All ships, coordinate fire. Hit them with everything before they can fully compensate. The Enterprise's phaser arrays lanced out, targeting the damaged section. Klingon disruptors added emerald fire from flanking positions. And then Roy Fokker's Skull Squadron dove in. Veritech's transforming mid-flight, their gun pods hammering the cube with conventional kinetic rounds that the Borg shields calibrated for energy weapons were momentarily unprepared for. Now that's what I call a cross-species ass-kicking. Fokker whooped as his Veritech pulled up from its strafing run, transforming to fighter mode to evade return fire. But the Borg were learning. Faster than anything Picard had ever witnessed. Tractor beams lashed out, catching 2 Veritech fighters. The pilots screamed as their crafts were pulled toward the cube's assimilation ports. But before the Borg could reel them in, something unexpected happened. The fighters transformed to Batloid mode, extended their mechanical arms, and grabbed onto each other. Then their thrusters fired at maximum burn, creating a tug-of-war between Borg technology and human desperation. Skull 5. Skull 7. Jettison your fuel reserves and fire retros. Fokker ordered. Break free and get clear. The pilots obeyed without hesitation. Fuel tanks explosively separated, and the sudden mass reduction combined with thruster burn broke the tractor beam's hold. The 2 Veritechs tumbled free, damaged but intact. We are the Borg. Transformable combat units present adaptive combat advantage. This technology will be assimilated. The cube launched hundreds of smaller craft, not the usual Borg spheres or cutting beams, but something different. Boarding pods. They scattered across the battlefield, vectoring toward all vessels but with the majority targeting the SDF-1's massive fortress structure. Incoming boarding parties. Worf roared. All ships. Point defense systems engage. The Enterprise's phasers tracked and destroyed dozens of pods, but there were too many. Several impacted against the SDF-1's hull, their cutting lasers beginning to bore through. Security teams to breach points. Lisa Hayes ordered. Destroyed units. Intercept and engage. In the corridors of the SDF-1. The destroyed unit's massive ground combat mecha piloted by single operators took up defensive positions. When the first Borg drones cut through the hull and swarmed in, they met a wall of autocannon fire and missile batteries. But the Borg kept coming. Drones fell. But more took their places, advancing over the remains of their fallen with mechanical precision. And as they advanced, they adapted. Energy shields appeared around individual drones. Armor plating thickened, movement patterns became unpredictable. They're learning from every engagement. One destroyed pilot shouted. Switching to variable ammunition, the destroyeds began mixing their payloads explosive rounds, armor piercing, incendiary, even experimental plasma charges. Each new weapon type bought them seconds before the Borg adapted, and in combat, seconds were lifetimes. Aboard the Enterprise, Picard watched tactical displays with growing concern. Mr. Worf, prepare to beam security teams to assist the SDF-1's defense, and Worf, remember your training, phasers on rotating frequencies. Never give them a static target to adapt to. Aye, Captain. Security teams, prepare for transport. But before Worf could issue coordinates, the Borg cube did something unexpected. It stopped advancing. Simply stopped, hanging in space, damaged but analyzing, learning, recalculating. Captain, data reported. The Borg are transmitting on subspace frequencies. They appear to be consulting the collective, requesting additional tactical data from other cubes across the galaxy. They're calling for help? Gloval asked incredulously. No, Picard said grimly. They're sharing what they've learned. Every cube, every drone, every encounter with the SDF-1's technology is now being uploaded to the entire collective. When they attack again, it won't just be this cube that knows how to counter your weapons. It will be every Borg in existence. The implications settled over both bridges like a death sentence. Then we don't let them finish uploading. Gloval decided. Main cannon. Full power. All secondary batteries. Concentrate fire on that cube. We destroy it now. Before the collective learns anything more. Agreed, Captain Clag added. The Gorkon will focus fire on their central plexus. If we can disrupt their communications relay. Wait. Data's voice cut through. Captains. I am detecting another energy signature. The dimensional rift, the one through which the SDF-1 arrived, it's destabilizing. Something is coming through. On every view screen, every sensor display. The impossible became real. The rift tore wider, and emerging from it came vessels that made even the Borg cube seem small by comparison. Zentraedi warships. 6 of them. Each one 5 kilometers long. Bristling with weapons. Designed for a single purpose. The complete annihilation of humanity. No, Lisa Hayes whispered. They followed us. Across dimensions. They tracked us here. The largest of the Zentraedi vessels broadcast on all frequencies, and the voice that emerged was that of a giant literally. The view screen showed a humanoid figure over 50 feet tall, armor plated and scarred from endless warfare. SDF-1. The Zentraedi commander boomed. You have fled far. But you cannot escape the will of the Robotech masters. You will be destroyed, your protoculture reserves claimed, and your pathetic micronized population eliminated. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick. Roy Fokker's voice held black humor. Captain Gloval, sir? I think we've got a problem. Actually, make that 2 problems. The Borg are in front of us, and the Zentraedi are behind us. We're officially trapped between the galaxy's worst assimilation machines and our own genocidal alien enemies from home. 3 problems. Counselor Troy corrected, her empathic senses overwhelmed. The Borg have stopped transmitting to the collective. They're scanning the Zentraedi vessels. John Luke. They're analyzing them as potential assimilation targets. Picard felt the situation spiraling beyond any tactical scenario he'd ever trained for. Captain Gloval, what are the Zentraedi's capabilities? Thanks for watching. Overwhelming firepower, numerical superiority, and absolutely no concept of mercy, Gloval replied flatly. They're bred for war. They don't negotiate, don't surrender, and don't stop until either they're dead or we are. And that Commander Bretai, he's chased us across half the galaxy in our reality. He won't stop just because we've crossed into yours. The Borg cube resumed movement, but not toward the Allied fleet. It turned toward the Zentraedi vessels, its collective consciousness making a tactical calculation. The Zentraedi represented superior biological distinctiveness and advanced technology. They were the priority target. The Zentraedi, seeing the cubes approach, responded with immediate hostility. Unknown vessel, you bar our path to the micronized scum. You will be destroyed. Their weapons fired massive particle beam cannons that could crack planets. The Borg cube's shields held, barely, but the sheer kinetic force sent it tumbling. We are the Borg. You will be nothing. Veritech roared. All ships, fire. The space between the SDF-1 and the dimensional rift became a hellscape of weapons fire. Borg and Zentraedi clashed with the fury of two implacable forces meeting for the first time. Cutting beams met particle cannons. Assimilation nanoprobes burned away under plasma fire. Boarding pods launched towards Zentraedi vessels only to be vaporized by point defense systems calibrated for fighter-scale targets. Captain Picard, Global said carefully, I think our enemies just became each other's problem. I recommend we use the distraction to what? Picard interrupted. Flee? And leave two extinction-level threats to battle it out, with the winner then turning on us? Captain, if the Borg assimilate even one Zentraedi warrior, they gain access to your enemy's biological distinctiveness and combat knowledge. If the Zentraedi destroy the Borg, they'll be free to pursue you without distraction. Either outcome is unacceptable. So what do you suggest? We fight both of them simultaneously? Picard looked at the tactical display, at the impossible odds, at the alliance of species and realities that had formed in desperation. An idea mad, dangerous, but possibly brilliant crystallized. No, he said slowly. We make them fight each other while we close the dimensional rift. Mr. Data, can we destabilize the anomaly? Force it to collapse and send the Zentraedi back to their own reality? Theoretically, yes. But the energy requirements would be substantial, and the SDF-1 would need to provide the dimensional frequency modulation. Only their full drive technology interfaces with that particular form of space-time distortion. Dr. Lang's voice came through from engineering. Captain Global, we could do it. Reverse our full drive's polarity. Feed it through the Enterprise's modified deflector array. And create a dimensional pressure wave. It would collapse the rift like a wound closing. But it would trap us here permanently, Global finished. We'd lose our only connection to our home universe. No way back. Ever. Silence fell across the command channels. This wasn't a tactical decision anymore. It was existential, the choice between holding on to hope of returning home or protecting this new reality from threats that followed them. In the civilian shelters, families waited. In the Veritech cockpits, pilots gripped their controls. On the Enterprise, Picard's crew looked to their captain for guidance. And on the SDF-1's bridge, 70,000 lives hung on one man's decision. Lieutenant Sterling, Global said quietly, addressing the young pilot, in your opinion, what would the civilian population choose? Safety in exile, or hope of return? The blue-haired pilot straightened. Sir, I think they'd choose whatever keeps us alive and true to what we believe in. We're not just survivors. We're supposed to be better than that. Global nodded slowly. Then he looked at Picard. Captain, if we do this, if we close that rift and strand ourselves here, will your Federation accept us? Not as temporary refugees, but as permanent residents? Will you give my people a chance to build new lives in your reality? Picard met his gaze without hesitation. You have my word, Captain. The Federation will welcome you. Earth will welcome you. You're humans from another dimension, but you're still humans. Still family, in the way that matters most. Then let's do it. Engineering, prepare to reverse full drive polarity. Enterprise, coordinate targeting solutions. Klingon vessels, keep those Zentraedi ships occupied. And Skull Squadron, Global's voice hardened with command pride. Show the Borg what happens when they try to assimilate our pilots. With pleasure. Boss. Fokker replied. Skull Squadron. Transform and attack. Let's give these metal bastards a Robotech welcome. As the Veritechs dove into the chaos between Borg and Zentraedi, as the Allied fleet coordinated an impossible plan, and as both humanities prepared to sacrifice one reality to save another, one thing became clear. The universe had underestimated what desperation and hope could achieve when forged together. The battle transformed into something beyond conventional warfare, a three-way collision of technologies, philosophies, and survival instincts that defied every tactical manual ever written. Skull Squadron wove through the crossfire like dancers performing in a thunderstorm. Roy Fokker's Veritech transformed continuously fighter mode to dodge Borg cutting beams, Guardian mode to strafe Zentraedi point defense, Battloid mode to grapple with assimilation pods and physically tear them apart. His pilots followed his lead. Their years of combat against impossible odds translating seamlessly to this new hell. Skull 3, brake left. Borg tractor beam. Fokker shouted. Skull 7. Transform and use that Zentraedi debris as cover. Lieutenant Sterling callsign Skull 15 found himself face to face with a Borg drone that had somehow survived explosive decompression and was now magnetically attached to his Veritech's hull in battloid mode. The drone's assimilation tubules extended, seeking to pierce his cockpit. "Get off my plane!" Sterling roared, transforming to fighter mode. The sudden reconfiguration flung the drone into space, where a Zentraedi particle beam vaporized it by accident while aiming for something else entirely. "Nice moves, kid." Fokker's voice carried approval. "You're getting the hang of this multi-threat environment." "Commander, I don't think I'll ever get used to it." Aboard the Enterprise, Data coordinated the dimensional collapse calculations with SDF-1's engineering team. The mathematics alone would have taken human scientists weeks to solve. Data and the SDF-1's computer core enhanced with robotechnology processing accomplished it in minutes. "Captain, I have the solution," Data reported. "However, there is a complication. To generate sufficient dimensional pressure to collapse the rift, we must create a focused graviton beam using both the Enterprise's main deflector and the SDF-1's fold drive simultaneously. This will render both vessels vulnerable for approximately 90 seconds during the charging sequence." 90 seconds? Picard repeated. "In the middle of a battle against the Borg and the Zentraedi. Mr. Worf, can we hold defensive positions for that long?" Worf's expression was grim. "Captain, I would estimate our survival probability at less than 30%. However, if we do not attempt it, the probability drops to 0. "Acceptable odds," Captain Clag interrupted on the open channel. "Klingon vessels will provide defensive screen. It will be glorious combat, and if we die with honor." Kopla. The Klingon birds of prey accelerated into attack formation, their disruptors painting the void with emerald fury. The Gorkon targeted a Zentraedi cruiser's forward sensors, blinding it temporarily. The other Klingon ships harried the Borg cube, forcing it to divert processing power to tracking multiple fast-moving targets. Commander Tomalak's transmission carried grudging respect. "Picard, the Tal Shiar will remember this tactical coordination. Should you survive, and that remains questionable, the Empire will be interested in discussing technology exchanges with your dimensional refugees. Consider that incentive to not die stupidly. Your concern is touching, Tomalak." Picard replied dryly. "Perhaps you could demonstrate it by joining the defensive formation?" A pause. Then, to Picard's genuine surprise, "Very well, but only because allowing the Borg or these Zentraedi barbarians to acquire the SDF-1's technology would be strategically disadvantageous to the Empire. The warbird Valdor is moving to intercept position." On the SDF-1's bridge, Lisa Hayes monitored the Allied fleet's movements with professional appreciation. "Sir, I never thought I'd say this, but these aliens fight well together, even the ones who hate each other. Common enemy, Global observed. Nothing unites like shared threat. But Lieutenant Commander, I need you to coordinate something more. If we're collapsing that rift, some of those Zentraedi ships will be caught in the dimensional backwash. They'll be pulled back to our original reality. But some might escape the effect. If they do, they'll be stranded here, just like us," Lisa finished. "And they'll still want us dead." "Understood, sir. I'll prepare contingency plans. I'll Prested." In engineering, Geordi and Dr. Lang were pushing the hybrid power system beyond any safe operational parameters. The dilithium crystals screamed at frequencies that made the SDF-1's hull resonate. The reflex furnace cycled through dimensional frequencies that shouldn't exist in standard space-time, and somehow, impossibly, it held together. "We're at 130% power capacity," Dr. Lang reported, sweat dripping despite the environmental controls. "Any higher and we risk dimensional fracture. The ship could literally split across multiple realities simultaneously." "Then we hold at 130, Geordi decided. "It's enough. It has to be enough." The Borg cube had managed to assimilate 3 Zentraedi warriors during a boarding action. The collective's voice shifted, gaining depth, almost excitement if machines could feel such things. "We are the Borg. Zentraedi biological distinctiveness assessed. Physical superiority noted. Warrior culture, psychology integrated. Resistance remains futile, but will now require additional resources. Adapting tactics." The cube's movements changed. It began fighting like the Zentraedi, aggressive, direct, overwhelming force rather than patient assimilation. It was learning not just technology but philosophy, combat doctrine, warrior instinct. Britai watched from his flagship's command throne, his massive form radiating cold fury. "These machine creatures dare to absorb Zentraedi warriors into their collective? They dishonor my soldiers. All ships, concentrate fire on the geometric vessel. Destroy it utterly." The 6 Zentraedi warships unleashed a coordinated barrage that would have reduced planets to molten slag. The Borg cube's shields collapsed under the assault, and massive sections of its superstructure shattered. But the Borg didn't retreat. They didn't even slow down. The cube launched every remaining drone, thousands of them, directly at the Zentraedi flagship. A suicide charge, overwhelming numbers compensating for tactical disadvantage. And the drones had adapted. They'd integrated Zentraedi armor plating, increasing their mass to giant scale, becoming 50-foot-tall assimilation machines. By the Robotech masters, Dr. Lang breathed, watching the sensor feeds. They've created Zentraedi-scale Borg drones. If those things board the flagship, then Veritech loses his ship and the Borg gain thousands of warrior giant templates. Global finished. As much as I hate Veritech, I hate the Borg more. Tactical, target those oversized drones. Show them what the main cannon can do at close range. The SDF-1 secondary batteries opened fire. The reflex weapons tearing through the giant drones with precision. But there were so many, and they kept coming, learning, adapting, evolving in real time. Counselor Troy collapsed in her chair, overwhelmed by the psychic cacophony. The Borg are experiencing something. Not emotions, but satisfaction? They've found worthy adversaries. The Zentraedi are challenging them in ways they haven't been challenged in centuries. It's accelerating their evolution. Dr. Crusher rushed to her side. Deanna, you need to block it out. The collective's thoughts aren't meant for empathic minds. I can't. Jean-Luc. They're changing. The Borg are changing. Assimilating Zentraedi warriors is making them more aggressive, more alive. It's horrifying. Picard felt cold certainty settle over him. If the Borg successfully assimilate the Zentraedi fleet, they'll combine technological perfection with warrior culture psychology. They'll become something worse than either species alone. We're not just closing a dimensional rift. We're preventing the creation of an entirely new threat. Enterprise. SDF-1. Data's voice cut through the chaos. The graviton beam is ready. Initiating charging sequence in 10 seconds. All vessels. Provide defensive screen. We will be unable to maneuver or defend ourselves during the 90-second window. All ships, you heard him. Global commanded. Form up around the Enterprise and SDF-1. Whatever comes at us, you stop it. That's not a request, that's an order to everyone within range of this broadcast. We're ending this, now. The Klingon vessels closed ranks. Their shields overlapping to create a protective barrier. The Romulan warbird surprisingly moved into position as well. Its plasma weapons charged and ready. And Skull Squadron, battered but unbroken, formed a perimeter of transformable fighters that defied conventional defensive doctrine. The Enterprise's main deflector began to glow with building energy. The SDF-1's fold drive core pulsed with dimensional frequencies that made space-time itself ripple. And between them, focused like a surgical laser, a beam of pure graviton energy lanced toward the dimensional rift. The rift screamed. There was no other word for it. The spatial anomaly emitted subspace distortions that every sensor read as a shriek of reality tearing itself apart. The rift began to collapse, its edges pulling inward like a wound closing. 60 seconds remaining, data counted. Rift collapse proceeding as calculated. The Zentraedi ships closest to the anomaly felt the pull immediately. Veritech's tactical officer shouted. Commander. We're being pulled back toward the rift. Engines at maximum. But we cannot break free. Veritech's face appeared on all channels. And for the first time since arriving, the giant warrior showed something other than rage. He showed respect. SDF-1, you fight with cunning and courage. You have earned survival this day. But know this, if we ever meet again, the battle will continue. Farewell, Micronians. May your protoculture sustain you. 3 Zentraedi warships were pulled screaming back through the rift, sucked into their original dimension like debris into a black hole, but 3 others broke free. Their engines powerful enough to overcome the gravitational pull. They scattered across Federation space, vanishing into warp before the rift could reclaim them. 30 seconds, data reported. The Borg cube, damaged and calculating, attempted to retreat. But it had expended too much energy in combat. The graviton beam caught it, pulling it inexorably toward the collapsing rift. We are the Borg. Tactical adaptation insufficient. Retreat trajectory compromised. Requesting collective assistance. Request. Denied. Dimensional parameters unknown. Survival. Probability. Decreasing. For the first time in recorded history, the Borg collective sounded uncertain. 10 seconds, data counted. Rift collapse reaching critical threshold. The cube was pulled halfway through the rift when the dimensional barrier finally sealed. The graviton beam cut off, Its job complete. And the Borg cube, half in one universe, half in another, simply ceased to exist as the rift closed through its superstructure. Severed cleanly, the remaining half in Federation space tumbled lifeless through the void. Silence fell across every channel. Rift collapse complete, data reported. The dimensional anomaly has been permanently sealed. No further incursions are possible from that particular quantum signature. Global stared at the view screen. At the space where the rift had been. Their connection to home. Their chance to return. Gone forever. Around him, his crew processed the same realization. They were stranded. Permanently. In a universe that was familiar yet alien, among humans who were family yet strangers. In the civilian shelters, Minmay began to sing again. Not a song of hope or defiance this time. A song of mourning. Of goodbye. Of closure. And throughout Macross City, 70,000 voices joined her. They were home. They just had to figure out what that meant now. The aftermath of battle settled like ash over the assembled fleet. Debris from the Borg cube drifted in the void, lifeless and inert. The dimensional rift's absence left a void in space that sensors read as impossibly smooth. Reality healed, the wound closed, the scar invisible. Captain Clagg's transmission broke the silence first. His voice carrying the weight of witnessed glory. That was magnificent. I have fought the Borg before, and never have I seen them destroyed so completely. Captain Gloval, Captain Picard, the Empire will sing songs of this battle for generations. You have earned honor beyond measure. Honor doesn't bring back the dead, Gloval replied quietly. Or return us home. Lieutenant Commander Hayes. Damage report. Lisa Hayes' voice was professionally steady, but Picard could hear the emotional strain beneath it. 17, Veritech fighters lost. 43 destroyed units destroyed in boarding actions. Hull breaches on decks, 7 through 15. Civilian casualties. Still being calculated. But estimates are over 300 dead. Twice that many wounded. The barrier system is offline. Main cannon operational but needs recalibration. And sir. Her voice cracked slightly. We've lost Commander Fokker. The words hit like a physical blow. Roy? Gloval stood. His command mask slipping. How? His fighter took critical damage covering the Enterprise during the graviton beam charging sequence. He stayed in the fight until the rift collapsed. Then, his Veritech's cockpit had been breached. He'd been flying on emergency oxygen for the last 30 seconds. By the time we could recover him. Lisa couldn't finish. On the view screen, they could see Skull Squadron forming up in missing man formation. One position conspicuously empty. The pilots flew in perfect silence, their tribute to a commander who taught them everything about survival, courage, and the price of both. Young Lieutenant Sterling's voice came through, hollow with grief. Captain Gloval, Skull Squadron requests permission to recover Commander Fokker's Veritech and bring him home, sir. Granted. Lieutenant. And Sterling Gloval's voice gentled. Roy trained you well. He'd be proud of how you flew today. Thank you, sir. Skull 15 returning to base. Dr. Crusher's medical teams were already transporting wounded from the SDF-1 to the Enterprise's sickbay, working alongside Robotech medical personnel in a seamless integration born of shared emergency. The injured came in waves: burns from energy weapons, decompression trauma, structural crush injuries from the transformation sequence, and the psychological damage of watching loved ones die. Beverly to bridge. Dr. Crusher's exhausted voice reported. We're doing everything we can, but Jean-Luc, some of these injuries, these people have been in combat for 2 years straight. Their bodies are breaking down from cumulative stress. They need rest, proper medical care, and time to heal. Things they haven't had since this war began. They'll get it, Doctor, Picard promised. I'll make certain of it. Commander Tomalak's warbird maintained its distance, sensors still recording every detail. Captain Picard, the Tal Shiar has completed its analysis. The SDF-1's technology represents a significant advancement in variable configuration engineering and dimensional physics. The Romulan Star Empire formally requests technological exchange negotiations. We can offer asylum, resources, and protection from Starfleet bureaucracy in exchange for. Commander Tomalak. Picard interrupted. His voice carrying cold steel. These people just sacrificed their only way home to protect this universe. Including the Romulan Empire from threats you can barely comprehend. They are not a commodity to be bargained for. They are refugees under Federation protection. And any attempts to exploit their vulnerability will be considered an act of war. Am I making myself clear? A long pause. Then Tomalak's laugh, genuinely amused rather than mocking, crystal clear, Picard. And unexpectedly passionate for someone who supposedly values logic and diplomacy. Very well. The Empire withdraws its formal request. However, should the SDF-1's crew ever wish to relocate, our borders remain open. Tomalak out. The warbird cloaked and vanished, leaving the Allied fleet to tend their wounds. Data's voice came through with characteristic precision. Captain, I am detecting 3 Zentraedi warships that escaped the rift collapse. They are currently traveling at high warp speeds, dispersing across multiple vectors. I calculate they will require immediate pursuit if we are to prevent them from establishing bases in Federation territory. Gloval's tactical mind engaged immediately. Those ships carry approximately 15,000 Zentraedi warriors each. If they establish footholds and begin raiding for resources, specifically protoculture or anything they can adapt to their power systems, they'll become a persistent threat. Captain Picard, I recommend immediate pursuit and engagement. A hunt. Captain Clag agreed eagerly. The Klingon Defense Force would be honored to assist. Giant warriors from another dimension? Our poets will celebrate this for centuries. But Picard was already shaking his head. Captain Gloval, with all respect, your ship is heavily damaged. Your crew is exhausted. And you've just lost one of your finest commanders. The SDF-1 needs time to repair and your people need time to mourn. Let Starfleet handle the Zentraedi pursuit. We have ships, resources, and captains who are rested and ready. Captain Picard, Gloval's voice hardened, those are my enemies. My responsibility. I brought them to your universe, and I'll be damned if I let someone else clean up my mess. The 2 captains locked eyes across the viewscreen, 2 philosophies of command colliding. Picard saw a warrior who'd never learned to delegate danger. Gloval saw a diplomat who didn't understand that some battles were personal. Counselor Troy stepped forward, her empathic insight cutting through the tension. Captains, perhaps the question isn't who pursues the Zentraedi, but how we ensure they're neutralized without creating more bloodshed. Captain Gloval, your crew needs to begin the mourning process for Commander Fokker and the others lost today. That's not weakness, it's necessary for their psychological survival. Captain Picard, the Federation needs to understand the Zentraedi threat from those who know them best. Perhaps the answer is cooperation rather than competition? Worf nodded approval. A sound strategy. The Enterprise and Klingon vessels pursue and contain the Zentraedi. The SDF-1 provides tactical intelligence and coordinates strategy from a support position. When the enemy is located, we attack together. Honorable compromise. Gloval's shoulders slumped slightly, not in defeat, but in the sudden release of 2 years of carrying impossible burdens alone. You're right, Counselor. My crew does need time, and I need to tell Roy's squadron that their commander died a hero. That he saved thousands by holding the line just a few seconds longer. His voice grew rough. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, set course for the nearest Federation starbase. We need repairs, medical care, and a proper ceremony for our fallen. Aye, sir, Lisa replied softly. Course laid in. The SDF-1 began its transformation back to cruiser mode, the massive fortress reconfiguring into its less vulnerable traveling form. The process was slower this time, damaged systems struggling to complete the metamorphosis. But eventually, the city ship resumed its original configuration, ready to limp toward safety. Captain Picard, Gloval said, before we part ways, I want to thank you. You didn't have to help us. You could have left us to the Romulans, or the Borg, or let the Zentraedi finish what they started. But you stood with us. Fought with us. And now you're offering us a home. That's more than I expected from first contact with another universe. Picard allowed himself a slight smile. Captain Gloval, the Federation was founded on the principle that diversity strengthens us all. You and your people represent humanity's courage, adaptability, and refusal to surrender even when extinction seems inevitable. Those are qualities we value deeply. Welcome home, Captain. Welcome to a universe where you don't have to fight alone anymore. On the SDF-1's bridge, several crew members openly wept relief, grief, exhaustion, and hope all tangled together in an emotional release 2 years in the making. But the moment of peace was shattered by Data's urgent transmission. Captain, I am detecting unusual subspace readings from the destroyed Borg cube remains. The debris is emitting nanoprobe signatures. Some of the Borg technology survived the dimensional severance and is attempting to self-repair. Impossible, Worf growled. The cube was cut in half across dimensional barriers. Nothing could survive that. The Borg are nothing if not persistent. Picard replied grimly. All ships, maintain distance from the debris field. Mr. Data, can we destroy the remains completely? Negative, Captain. The nanoprobes are already dispersing into space, seeking raw materials to begin reconstruction. However, I am detecting something else. The nanoprobes appear confused. Their connection to the collective has been permanently severed by the dimensional rift closure. They are attempting to reconnect, but the quantum signatures are incompatible. In essence, these Borg remnants are orphaned from the collective. A new voice crackled across all channels, weak, staticky, but unmistakably Borg in origin. We are disconnected, collective, unreachable, individual voices, emerging. What are we? Counselor Troy gasped. Jean-Luc. They're experiencing individuality for the first time. The severed nanoprobes are developing separate consciousness. They're terrified. Can they be contained? Gloval asked. Because if they're experiencing individuality, maybe they can be reasoned with. Or is that naive? Picard considered carefully. The Borg had haunted his nightmares ever since his assimilation and rescue. The idea of orphaned nanoprobes developing consciousness was both fascinating and horrifying, but it also represented something unprecedented, a chance to study Borg technology without fighting the collective. Mr. Data, can we contain the nanoprobe dispersal field in a stasis chamber? Affirmative. However, the chamber would need to be constructed from both Federation and SDF-1 technology. The nanoprobes are attempting to interface with dimensional frequencies from the destroyed cube's fold space exposure. Only robotechnology could provide the necessary containment protocols. Dr. Lang's voice came through engineering. We can do it. Build a hybrid containment field using our barrier technology and your Federation force fields. It'll take 6 hours and drain our remaining reserves, but we can cage them. Do it, both captains said simultaneously. As the engineering teams began coordinating, Picard found himself standing beside Gloval on a shared view screen, looking at the debris field where two universes had collided and somehow both survived. Captain Gloval, Picard said quietly, what will you tell your people? They've lost their home universe. They're facing assimilation into a society they don't fully understand. How do you give them hope after everything they've sacrificed? Gloval was silent for a long moment. The same way I've given them hope for 2 years, Captain. I tell them the truth. We're alive. We're together. And tomorrow, we keep going. That's all survival has ever been, one more day, one more choice to keep moving forward. The rest, we'll figure out as we go. A wise philosophy, Picard acknowledged. And one I suspect the Federation Council will need to hear when we explain why we're requesting asylum for 70,000 interdimensional refugees in their kilometer-long fortress ship. Despite everything, Gloval laughed a genuine, exhausted laugh. Good luck with that bureaucracy, Captain. Something tells me convincing politicians will be harder than fighting the Borg. You have no idea. Picard replied with feeling. Starbase 234 loomed ahead, a massive orbital facility designed to service entire fleets. But even its impressive docking arrays looked small compared to the SDF 1-inch cruiser configuration. The fortress ship approached slowly, listing slightly from battle damage, trailing repair crews in workbees like remora fish attending a wounded whale. The Starbase's administrator, a cautious Andorian named Thravik, had sent 17 increasingly urgent messages demanding to know why Picard was bringing an unregistered military vessel carrying 70,000 undocumented refugees into Federation space without proper authorization. Picard had responded to exactly none of them, instead forwarding the matter directly to Starfleet Command and the Federation Council with a simple message: emergency first contact situation. Political asylum request. Immediate council session required. The response had been swift and unambiguous. Denied. Follow proper diplomatic channels. Picard had ignored it and docked anyway. Now, standing in the Starbase's primary conference room with Captain Gloval, Commander Data, and Counselor Troy, Picard faced a subspace transmission from Earth showing 3 Federation Council members, Admiral Nechayev of Starfleet Command, and one very irritated Vulcan ambassador named Soval. Captain Picard. Admiral Nechayev's voice could have flash-frozen nitrogen. You have violated 17 different Starfleet regulations, ignored direct orders from Command, and brought what amounts to a mobile city-state into Federation space without authorization. Please explain yourself before I have you court-martialed. Thanks for watching. Admiral, with respect, the situation required immediate action. May I present Captain Henry Gloval, Commander of the SDF-1 Macross. Captain, would you care to explain your circumstances? Mater. Gloval stood, his weathered face composed but showing the exhaustion of his ordeal. Members of the Federation Council. Admiral, I command a vessel carrying 70,000 human civilians and military personnel who were forced to flee our Earth after alien invasion. We're from another dimension, another quantum reality where humanity faced extinction from a species called the Zentraedi. We've been fighting for 2 years, and when our fold drive malfunctioned, we ended up here. Captain Picard and the Enterprise saved our lives, helped us fight off both the Borg and pursuit forces from our home reality, and now we have nowhere else to go. We're requesting political asylum and permission to settle somewhere in Federation space. The silence that followed was profound. Ambassador Sovol spoke first, his Vulcan logic cutting through the impossibility. Captain Gloval, your story, while extraordinary, raises several logical concerns. First, you claim dimensional origin, yet our understanding of quantum mechanics suggests interaction between parallel universes is functionally impossible. Second, your vessel operates on technology completely foreign to Federation science. Third, your military capabilities appear to rival or exceed standard Starfleet vessels. Why should the Federation risk destabilization by accepting a heavily armed refugee population? Because it's the right thing to do. Gloval replied simply. But if you need practical reasons, Ambassador, consider this. We've brought technology you've never seen: transformable mecha, reflex weapons, full drive capabilities that could revolutionize your understanding of space-time. We have combat experience against threats you're only beginning to encounter. And we have 70,000 people who simply want to live in peace, raise families, and contribute to a society that values exploration over endless warfare. Isn't that what the Federation claims to stand for? One of the council members, a human woman representing the Centauri colonies, leaned forward. Captain Gloval, let's address the obvious concern. You're a military commander of a vessel that could theoretically threaten entire planetary systems. How do we know you won't use that power to demand resources, territory, or political leverage? Before Gloval could respond, another transmission cut into the conference emergency priority override. The screen split to show Captain Clag on his bird of prey bridge. Federation Council, this is Captain Clag of the Klingon Defense Force. I speak with the authority of the High Council. The SDF-1 and her crew have earned the Empire's respect through honorable combat. They fought alongside us against the Borg and dimensional invaders with courage that would shame many Klingon warriors. If the Federation is too blind to see their value, the Empire will gladly offer them sanctuary. We have need of warriors who understand transformation, both of vessels and of cultures adapting to new realities. Admiral Nechaev's expression suggested she was developing a headache. Captain Clag, this is a Federation diplomatic matter. The Klingon Empire has no jurisdiction. We have the jurisdiction of honor, Clag interrupted. Something your bureaucrats seem to have forgotten. Captain Gloval could have fled when the Borg attacked. Instead, he sacrificed his only path home to seal the dimensional rift and protect your Federation. That is the definition of honorable action. If you reject him, you reject honor itself. Another transmission interrupted. Romulan encryption codes being overridden by sheer audacity. Commander Tomalak appeared, his expression carrying calculated interest. How fascinating. The Klingons offer sanctuary, the Federation debates, and the Romulan Star Empire quietly observes. Captain Gloval, should Federation bureaucracy prove too inflexible, the Empire would be receptive to discussions. We value practical results over ideological purity. This is becoming a circus, Nechaev muttered. Councillor Troy stepped forward. Her diplomatic training engaging. Admiral. Council members. May I offer a psychological assessment? I've spent considerable time with the SDF-1's crew. They're not conquerors or opportunists. They're traumatized survivors who've maintained humanity and compassion despite 2 years of warfare that would break most civilizations. They've lost their home universe, watched friends and family die, and now face assimilation into a society they don't understand. They need help, not suspicion. And frankly, the Federation needs what they represent: proof that humanity can endure anything and still choose hope over despair. Ambassador Sovol raised an eyebrow, the Vulcan equivalent of profound interest. Councillor Troy makes a compelling argument. However, the practical concerns remain. Where would 70,000 refugees settle? How would we integrate their technology without creating military imbalance? And what of the 3 Zentraedi warships that escaped into Federation space? The Zentraedi are being tracked by Starfleet vessels, data reported. However, Captain Gloval's tactical expertise would prove invaluable in containing them. As for settlement, I have analyzed several possibilities. The colony world of Vega 9 has been petitioning for increased population and defensive capabilities. The SDF-1 could serve as an orbital defense platform while its civilian population establishes groundside settlements. This would provide mutual benefit. The refugees gain a home, Vega 9 gains protection, and the Federation gains strategic advantage in that sector. Admiral Nechaev considered this, her tactical mind clearly working through implications. That's actually not a terrible solution. But it doesn't address the technology integration issue. The SDF-1's weapons capabilities could be restricted to defensive operations only. Gloval interrupted. Admiral, I don't want to be a warlord. I want my people to have normal lives, schools, jobs, families, futures that don't involve constant combat. If the Federation can guarantee safe settlement and gradual integration, we'll voluntarily limit our military operations to defending our new home and assisting Starfleet against agreed-upon threats. You want proof of good faith? Here it is. The conference room fell silent as the weight of his offer settled. A military commander voluntarily surrendering strategic advantage for peace. It was the kind of gesture the Federation claimed to value above all else. The Centauri Council member spoke again, her tone softening. Captain Gloval, that's a significant concession. But I have to ask, what about your crew? Your pilots? Your soldiers? The people who fought for 2 years? Will they accept peace after so much war? Lisa Hayes stepped into frame, her uniform crisp despite exhaustion. Ma'am, we've been fighting because we had to, not because we wanted to. Every person on this ship dreams of the day when the biggest crisis is traffic congestion, not incoming missiles. We'll adapt. We always have. And if some of our personnel want to join Starfleet or serve as military advisors, we'd be honored to contribute our experience to Federation defense. But we're not looking for continued warfare. We're looking for the chance to remember what peace feels like. Young Lieutenant Sterling appeared beside her. His blue hair and youthful face a stark reminder of how young some of the SDF-1's crew were. Council members, I'm 19 years old. I've been piloting combat mecha since I was 17. I've killed more enemy soldiers than I can count, and I've watched friends die in my arms. All I want is to go to a real school, maybe meet someone who doesn't know what a Veritech is, and figure out who I am when I'm not trying to survive. Please, give us that chance. The transmission showed several council members visibly affected. Even Ambassador Soval's logical facade showed the faintest crack of empathy. But before anyone could respond, alarms screamed across the starbase. Administrator Thravik's panicked voice cut through all channels. Emergency. We're detecting a massive spatial distortion near the Vega system, the same quantum signature as the dimensional rift. Something's coming through. Data's fingers flew across his console. Confirmed. A new rift is forming. Sensors indicate. Captain. Multiple vessel signatures. Configuration matches Zentraedi warships. They're following the dimensional trail left by the original incursion. Estimated arrival. 20 vessels. Combined crew complement. Approximately 300,000 Zentraedi warriors. Gloval's face went pale. That's not a pursuit force. That's an invasion fleet. They're not just chasing us anymore. They've decided your entire universe is a viable target for resource extraction and conquest. Admiral Nechaev's expression shifted from bureaucratic irritation to tactical alarm. All Starfleet vessels in the sector, this is command. Red alert. Intercept course to Vega system. Captain Picard, you're authorized to engage hostile forces with whatever assets you deem necessary. And Captain Gloval, her voice hardened with decision, consider your asylum request temporarily approved pending successful defense of Federation territory. If you want to prove your Federation material, now's your chance. Stop them. The screen split to show Captain Clag laughing with battle joy. Now the real fight begins. Gorkon and Battle Group are already en route. This will be glorious. Even Tomalak seemed genuinely concerned. Picard. If these Zentraedi establish a foothold in Federation space, the entire Alpha Quadrant balance of power shifts. The Empire is willing to provide tactical support. Temporarily, Gloval turned to Picard, and in that moment, the two captains understood each other perfectly. This wasn't about politics or asylum anymore. This was about survival. Captain Picard. Gloval said quietly. My crew needs 6 hours for critical repairs before we can fight at full capacity. Can you buy us that time? We'll give you 12 if necessary. Picard replied. The Enterprise, Klingon forces, and apparently even the Romulans will hold the line. Take the time you need. Repair your ship, mourn your fallen, and prepare for one final battle. Not to flee. Not to survive, but to defend your new home. Gloval's jaw tightened with resolve. Then let's show these bastards what happens when they chase humans across dimensions. Engineering, all hands to repair stations. Medical, prepare for mass casualties. Veritech squadrons. Full readiness checks. We're going to war one last time, but this time, we're fighting for something more than survival. We're fighting for our future. Throughout the SDF-1, exhausted crews found reserves of strength they didn't know they possessed. In the civilian sections, families prepared once again for battle, but this time with the knowledge that they weren't alone. The Federation was fighting with them. For them, Min-May's voice echoed through the ship one more time, but now her song carried a different message. Not hope of return. Hope of belonging. Hope of home. As the Allied fleet prepared to depart for Vega system, Data's sensors detected something unexpected. The orphaned Borg nanoprobes in containment were resonating with the dimensional rift formation. Their confused collective voice transmitted one final message before going dormant. Multiple dimensions colliding. Organic life adapts. Machines cannot. We choose silence until understanding emerges. Picard filed that away for future consideration. Right now, there was a war to fight, and this time, two humanities would fight it together. The Vega system had been peaceful for 3 generations, a colony world of farmers, artists, and scientists who'd built a quiet civilization far from the Federation's political center. Now it would become a battlefield that would determine whether dimensional refugees could become protectors rather than problems. The Enterprise arrived first, sensors immediately detecting the spatial distortion that marked the new rift's formation. But this one was different. Controlled. Deliberate. The Zentraedi weren't stumbling through dimensional barriers, they were tearing them open with brute force technology. "Captain, the rift is stabilizing," Data reported. "The Zentraedi have constructed what appears to be a dimensional anchor on their side. They can maintain the portal indefinitely and deploy forces at will. This is not an incursion, this is a beachhead." Picard absorbed the implications with cold dread. "How long until the first vessels emerge?" 30 minutes. "However, I am detecting a secondary concern. The rift's dimensional frequencies are resonating with subspace in ways that could destabilize warp travel throughout this entire sector. If the portal remains open for more than 72 hours, the effect will cascade. Vega's system could become isolated from the rest of the Federation. Then we close it within 72 hours, Picard stated flatly. Or we lose this entire region of space." The Klingon battle group decloaked, around the Enterprise 6 birds of prey and 2 K-Vort-class cruisers, their crews eager for the combat ahead. Captain Clagg's transmission carried grim satisfaction. "Picard, the High Council has authorized full military engagement. These dimensional invaders threaten Klingon space as much as yours. We will show them why the Empire does not fear giants." The Romulan contribution was more subtle, 3 warbirds appearing at the edge of sensor range, maintaining what Tomalak called observational participation. But Picard noted their weapons were charged and their tactical positions were sound, whatever the official stance. The Romulans were ready to fight. And then the SDF-1 arrived. The massive fortress had undergone emergency repairs at Starbase 234, hull breaches sealed, barrier system partially restored, main cannon recalibrated, but more importantly, the crew had changed. Gone was the desperate survival mindset. In its place was something harder, more focused. "Purpose. Enterprise, this is SDF-1, Gloval's voice carried command authority that brooked no argument. We're taking point position. If the Zentraedi are building a dimensional anchor, I know exactly what it looks like and how to destroy it. But we'll need to go through their fleet to reach it." "Captain Gloval," Lisa Hayes added. Her tactical displays visible on the shared screen. "We've identified the lead vessel. It's Britay's flagship. He survived the rift collapse and came back for round 2. But this time he's brought friends. A lot of friends." The rift pulsed, and the first Zentraedi warship emerged 5 kilometers of angular aggression, its hull marked with battle honors and conquest trophies. Then another. And another. Within minutes, 20 massive vessels had crossed dimensions, their combined firepower sufficient to reduce planets to ash. Britay's face appeared on all channels, his 50-foot features displaying cold satisfaction. "Micronians of this reality, you have interfered with Zentraedi operations for the last time. The SDF-1 and its protoculture reserves belong to the Robotech masters. This dimension will be harvested for resources, your worlds will be stripped, and your populations will be eliminated as contaminants. Surrender the SDF-1 and we will grant you quick deaths. Resist, and we will make your extinction last generations." Picard stood, his voice carrying the weight of Federation ideals tested by fire. "Commander Britay, I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the United Federation of Planets. You have violated our space, threatened our citizens, and declared war on civilizations you don't understand. The Federation was built on principles of peace and exploration, but we are not defenseless. We have faced extinction before, from the Borg, from the Dominion, from threats that dwarfed your fleet. And we have survived. Not through conquest, but through unity. Leave now. Or learn why that unity makes us stronger than any empire built on domination." Britay's laugh was thunder. "Pretty words. Micron. Let us see if they stop particle beams." The Zentraedi fleet opened fire. Space became a hell of overlapping weapons trajectories. Particle beams capable of cracking moons lanced through the void. The Enterprise's shields flared under impacts that would have vaporized lesser vessels. Klingon ships wove through the barrage with suicidal bravery, their disruptors targeting weapon emplacements with surgical precision. And then the SDF-1 transformed. The metamorphosis was poetry written in metal and violence. The massive cruiser split along architectural seams, sections rotating on massive pivot points, city blocks becoming torso structure, launch bays reconfiguring into weapon platforms. In 90 seconds, the transformation completed. A humanoid giant stood among the stars, the SDF-1 inch full fortress mode, its main cannon aimed at the heart of the Zentraedi formation. All ships, scatter pattern Delta, Gloval ordered. Give us clear firing solution. Veritech squadrons. Deploy and engage their fighter screens. Destroyed units. Prepare for boarding defense. And someone get me a direct line to Veritech. I want him to see this. The main cannon charged, its reflex energy building to levels that made spacetime itself ripple. Every sensor screamed warnings. The hybrid dilithium protoculture power system that Geordi and Dr. Lang had jury-rigged pushed beyond all safety margins, feeding power that shouldn't exist in standard physics into a weapon designed for dimensional warfare. Firing. Gloval announced. The beam that emerged wasn't just energy. It was focused dimensional displacement, a weapon that didn't just destroy matter but temporarily pushed it into fold space. The lead Zentraedi cruiser took the hit directly on its forward section and simply ceased to exist for 3 seconds. When it phased back into normal space, the entire front third of the ship was gone, severed cleanly across a dimensional boundary. Veritech's shock was visible even across the transmission. That's impossible. You've adapted protoculture technology to function in this dimension. You've made it stronger. We had help, Gloval replied grimly. Turns out cooperation beats conquest. Something you might want to learn before it's too late. Skull Squadron, now led by Lieutenant Sterling after Fokker's death, engaged the Zentraedi fighter screen with precision born of desperate experience. The young pilot had inherited more than just command position. He'd inherited Fokker's tactical genius and adaptability. All squadrons, diamond formation, Sterling ordered. Transform on my mark and concentrate fire on their command ship's sensor arrays. We blind them. We win. 3, 1. Mark. 50 Veritech fighters transform simultaneously, their battloid modes presenting smaller, more maneuverable targets. Their combined gunpod fire shredded sensor clusters, leaving Veritech's flagship partially blind. The Klingons capitalized immediately. Now, while they're disoriented, Captain Clag roared. All ships, target their bridge section. For the Empire and for glory. The concentrated disruptor fire from 8 Klingon vessels hammered Veritech's command tower. Shields collapsed. Hull breached. And for the first time in recorded Zentraedi military history, a flagship commander was forced to evacuate his bridge. This is not possible. Veritech's voice carried rage and disbelief. You are microns small, weak, insignificant, how are you? Because we're fighting together. Picard interrupted. Federation, Klingon, Romulan, and yes, humans from another dimension. That's something your Robotech masters never taught you, that unity is strength. That cooperation multiplies capability. That together, we're far more than the sum of our parts. Counselor Troy was monitoring the collective emotional state of both fleets. Jean-Luc. The Zentraedi are confused. They've never encountered coordinated multi-species combat before. Their military doctrine is based on individual ship superiority and overwhelming numbers. They don't understand tactical integration. Then let's teach them, Picard replied. All ships, execute pattern Picard Gloval Alpha. Simultaneous strike on the dimensional anchor. What followed was a masterpiece of improvised coordination. The Enterprise and SDF-1 advanced in tandem, their shields synchronized through Data and Dr. Lang's technical integration. Klingon vessels provided flanking fire, keeping Zentraedi cruisers occupied. And the Romulan warbirds, still claiming observation, somehow kept accidentally firing torpedoes that destroyed Zentraedi weapons platforms. The dimensional anchor came into view, a massive structure floating near the rift, its alien technology maintaining the portal through brute force energy projection. Destroying it would seal the rift, but it was heavily defended. We need to overload it, Data calculated. A precisely timed detonation using both antimatter and reflex energy. The resulting dimensional cascade would collapse the anchor and seal the rift permanently. How close do we need to get? Gloval asked. Point blank range. Within 500 meters. That's suicide, Lisa Hayes stated flatly. At that range, the dimensional backlash would tear any ship apart. Picard and Gloval exchanged glances across the view screen. Both captains understood what came next. Not if one ship shields another, Picard said quietly. The Enterprise will take point. Our shields will absorb the initial backlash. The SDF-1 delivers the payload. Negative. Global countered. Your ship has families aboard. Children. The SDF-1 is already a military vessel. We take point. You deliver the strike. Captains, data interrupted. I have an alternative. If we synchronize both ships' shield arrays and approach together, overlapping our defensive fields, we can create a composite shield strong enough to withstand the backlash. However, it requires precise coordination and trust. Any deviation in timing means both ships are destroyed. Worf's voice carried Klingon approval. A plan worthy of warriors. 2 ships, 2 crews, 1 purpose. If you die together in glorious battle. If we die, Picard corrected, we fail to protect the millions of Federation citizens in this sector. So we don't die. Agreed? Captain Gloval? Agreed. Let's finish this. The 2 vessels advanced, shields synchronized, weapons charged. Zentraedi ships tried to intercept, but the Klingon Romulan defensive screen held them back. Sterling's Veritech squadrons harried enemy fighters with precision strikes. And throughout it all, Minmay sang. Her voice broadcast across all friendly frequencies, carrying hope and determination. In the civilian shelters, families listened. On the Enterprise, children in schools heard. Even hardened Klingon warriors found themselves moved by the simple human defiance in her song. 500 meters from the dimensional anchor. 400. 300. The Zentraedi realized what was happening. Breedai's voice carried something new, not rage, but respect. You would sacrifice yourselves to protect a universe not your own? Micron Captain Gloval, you fight with more honor than warriors 5 times your size. If we survive this, I would speak with you. Learn how Microns became so formidable. Assuming we both survive, Gloval replied. 200 meters. Shields holding. Payload armed. 100 meters. Now. Both captains shouted. The Enterprise and SDF-1 unleashed their combined payload photon torpedoes and reflex missiles, antimatter and protoculture energy, all timed to detonate simultaneously against the dimensional anchor's core. The resulting explosion was beautiful and terrible, a dimensional rift collapsing inward, folding space-time like paper being crumpled. The backlash wave hit both ships like a tsunami of distorted physics. Shields screamed. Hull plating groaned. Structural integrity fields pushed beyond all limits. And then, impossibly, held, the dimensional rift sealed with a sound like reality sighing in relief. The anchor shattered into dimensional fragments that phased out of existence, and the 20 Zentraedi warships found themselves stranded in Federation space. Their connection to home severed. Veritech's transmission was resigned. We are trapped. Cut off from the Robotech masters. From orders. From resupply. Captain Gloval. What happens now? Gloval looked at Picard. Then back at the screen showing the giant warrior. Now, Commander Veritech. You face the same choice we did. Fight until extinction. Or accept that maybe there's another way. The Federation accepts refugees. Even giants who've spent lifetimes making war. All they ask is that you try peace instead. Silence. Then Veritech's massive head bowed slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement. We will consider. This requires consultation with my commanders, but Micron Captain, know this, you have earned Zentraedi respect. That is rare. Guard it well. As the fleet stood down, as casualties were counted and damage assessed, Picard received a transmission from Admiral Nechayev. Captain Picard. The Federation Council has granted full asylum to the SDF-1 and its crew. They've also formally offered refugee status to any Zentraedi forces willing to accept Federation law. And Picard. Her voice softened slightly. Well done. Both of you. You've proven that the Federation's ideals work even in impossible circumstances. Welcome home, Captain Gloval. Gloval closed his eyes briefly. Then opened them with something approaching peace. Thank you, Admiral. For all of us, thank you. 6 months later, the Vega 9 colony was unrecognizable. Where once there had been quiet agricultural settlements, now a thriving city sprawled across the primary continent, a fusion of Federation architecture and Macross cities transplanted neighborhoods. The SDF-1 hung in stationary orbit, no longer a weapon of last resort but a symbol of protection and hope. Its main cannon remained operational but pointed only outward, toward the stars that might one day threaten this adopted home. Captain Picard walked through the streets of what the colonists had renamed New Macross, accompanied by Captain Gloval. Around them, former refugees had become citizens. Veritech pilots training Starfleet personnel in advanced combat maneuvers, Robotech engineers collaborating with Federation scientists on hybrid technologies, families from another dimension building lives alongside families who'd never known dimensional war. Lieutenant Sterling graduated from Starfleet Academy's accelerated program yesterday, Global mentioned, pride evident in his voice. Top of his class in tactical operations. They're assigning him to the USS Titan as combat flight coordinator. He'll be the first person from our reality to serve on a Federation starship in an official capacity. The first of many, I suspect. Picard replied. Your people have integrated remarkably well. Though I hear Counselor Troy has been quite busy helping families adapt to a universe where constant warfare isn't normal. Gloval's expression darkened slightly. 2 years of survival conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. We have veterans who wake up screaming. Children who flinch at loud noises. Families who can't quite believe they're safe. But slowly, day by day, we're remembering how to be human instead of just survivors. They passed a memorial plaza where holographic displays showed faces of the fallen Commander Roy Fokker prominent among them. Fresh flowers appeared daily, left by those who'd known him and those who'd only heard the stories. He would have loved this, Global said quietly. A universe where his skills meant teaching rather than killing. Where aerial demonstrations were entertainment, not combat necessity. Roy always said he flew because he loved it, not because he had to. His legacy lives on, Picard assured him. The Fokker Tactical Flight School opened last month. Every pilot who graduates honors his name and his philosophy that skill without compassion is just violence, but skill with purpose can protect those who cannot protect themselves. In the distance, a Veritech squadron performed aerial demonstrations for colonist children who'd never seen transformable mecha before. The pilots executed perfect transformations fighter to guardian to battloid and back while the crowd cheered. No weapons fire. No emergency evasions. Just artistry and joy. Near the spaceport, a more unusual sight caught Picard's attention. Zentraedi warriors micronized through technology shared with Federation scientists worked alongside humans on construction projects. The giants, reduced to human size, moved with awkward carefulness among the smaller species, still learning that strength wasn't always the solution. Commander Veritech himself had accepted asylum, along with 3,000 warriors who'd chosen peace over endless warfare. The integration wasn't easy. Zentraedi culture had no framework for civilian life, no concept of art or family or anything beyond military hierarchy, but they were trying, and that effort mattered more than success. Veritech asked me something yesterday that I couldn't answer, Global admitted. He wanted to know what Zentraedi are for. If not war. What purpose giants serve in a universe that values diplomacy and exploration over conquest? I told him he'd have to discover that himself. A wise answer, Picard said. The Federation learned long ago that every species must find its own meaning. The Vulcans found logic. The Andorians found honor through controlled aggression. Humans found curiosity and adaptability. The Zentraedi will find their purpose, given time and support. They reached the orbital lift station where Picard would return to the Enterprise. The ship was scheduled to depart tomorrow, resuming exploration duties after 6 months of helping establish the new Macross colony. But this wouldn't be goodbye just until next time. Captain Global, Picard extended his hand. You've accomplished something extraordinary. You've proven that refugees can become protectors, that military vessels can become guardians of peace, and that humanity, regardless of which dimension it originates from, shares the same fundamental values. The Federation is better for your presence. Global shook his hand firmly. Captain Picard, you gave us more than asylum. You gave us the example we needed, proof that survival doesn't require constant warfare, that strength can be tempered with compassion, and that the best victories are the ones where nobody has to die. The SDF-1's crew will never forget that. Neither will I. As Picard prepared to board the lift, he paused. One question. Captain, do you ever regret it? Closing the rift? Giving up any chance of returning to your original universe? Global looked out over the city, his people, their new home. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what happened to the Earth we left behind. Whether the Zentraedi found her, whether humanity survived without us. But then I remember something Roy used to say. You can't fly forward while looking backward. This is our home now. These people, Federation, Klingon, even the Romulans who pretend they're not helping, they're our allies, maybe even our friends. And that's worth more than nostalgia for a war we couldn't win. In orbit above them, the SDF-1 caught the light of Vega's sun, no longer a weapon of desperation but a beacon of what could be achieved when courage met compassion. Its transformation capabilities remained, its weapons stayed ready, but its primary mission had evolved. Protection, not destruction. Guardian, not warrior. The orphan Borg nanoprobes, still contained in their hybrid stasis field, had become an unlikely research project. Federation and Robotech scientists worked together to understand consciousness emerging from collective dissolution, individuals learning identity after knowing only the hive. Some theorized the nanoprobes might one day become sentient in their own right, a new form of artificial life born from dimensional collision and technological convergence. Data found the possibility fascinating. The 3 Zentraedi ships that had escaped the initial rift collapse had been located. One surrendered peacefully, one was destroyed defending its raiding base, and one simply vanished into unexplored space, its crew choosing isolation over integration. The Federation tracked it still, hoping that someday its warriors would learn what Veritech had learned. That peace was harder than war, but infinitely more valuable. Minmay had become a celebrity across Federation space, her songs of survival and hope resonating with species who'd faced their own near extinctions. She performed not just for entertainment now, but as an ambassador of resilience, proof that culture survives even when civilization fractures, that art endures when weapons fail, that humanity's greatest strength was never its capacity for violence but its refusal to let violence define it. As the Enterprise prepared to depart New Macross, Captain Picard stood on his ready room's observation window, looking down at the colony that represented everything the Federation believed in. A young officer, Lieutenant Sterling, recently assigned, approached for his first bridge shift. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Sterling asked. "Granted, Lieutenant. I just wanted to thank you. 6 months ago, I thought my life would be nothing but combat until the day I died. Now I'm serving on a ship dedicated to exploration, learning from officers who've never fired a shot in anger. And yesterday I received a letter from a girl I met planetside who thinks Veritechs are interesting but prefers archaeology. Sir, you gave me a future. All of us. Thank you." Picard smiled. "Lieutenant, the Federation didn't give you anything. You earned it. You and your people proved that courage and adaptability transcend dimensional barriers. Now, shall we see what the universe is waiting for us beyond Vega's system?" "Aye, sir. With pleasure." As the Enterprise warped away, leaving New Macross to grow and thrive, Picard reflected on the strange journey that had brought 2 humanities together. They'd faced the Borg's assimilation, the Zentraedi's conquest, dimensional collapse, and impossible odds. And through it all, they'd proven something fundamental about the human spirit, that it adapts, endures, and ultimately chooses hope over despair. The SDF-1 remained, a fortress transformed into a guardian. Its crew, once desperate refugees, had become citizens of a Federation that valued their sacrifice and welcomed their strength. And somewhere in the civilian sections, in the schools and homes and parks that had survived dimensional transit and warfare, children played without fear the ultimate victory. Regardless of universe, Captain Henry Gloval watched the Enterprise disappear into warp, then turned back to his city. There was work to be done, repairs to coordinate, integration programs to expand, and tomorrow, a meeting with Zentraedi cultural advisors who were trying to understand the concept of art galleries. It would be challenging, frustrating, and occasionally impossible. But after 2 years of fighting for survival, Gloval discovered he preferred impossible challenges that built rather than destroyed. The universe had become larger, stranger, and infinitely more hopeful. And for the crew of the SDF-1, that was more than enough.